Vinod Khosla, the founder of Khosla Ventures, the famed venture capital firm in Silicon Valley, has put out 12 incredible predictions about the future. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So first, why should you listen to Vinod Khosla? Who is he? So let's just look at some of the investments that Khosla has made over the last 20 years. We have Okta, currently valued at $27 billion, RingCentral, $23 billion, GitLab, which is a very popular enterprise alternative to GitHub, Color Genomics. We have academia.edu, DoorDash, which is a huge public company, Impossible Foods, Instacart, OpenDoor, Square, Stripe. These are all massive companies that Khosla Ventures made early bets on. So Vinod Khosla has been in Silicon Valley for a very long time and has made some incredible investments and really has seen the future better than most have. And so Vinod just today put out this tweet thread which includes a series of slides, which I think were part of a TED Talk, although I can't find the video. But in it, he says, entrepreneur with passion for a vision, invent the future they want. These are my predictions for abundant, awesome, technology-based possible tomorrows, 2035 through 2049, if we allow it to happen. Now, Vinod is extremely optimistic with these predictions, and I think that's the point. I tend to be very optimistic about technology in the future, but I also know there's always the flip side to it. So as we're going through these slides, keep that in mind. Understand that I'm an optimist and it's totally okay to be a pessimist as well as we're talking through these because someone needs to take that position. Number one, expertise will be near free. We will be capable of having near free AI doctors for every person and AI tutors for every child 24/7. I think this is probably the most likely prediction he has. And in fact, I think the scope that he's describing here is actually much smaller than what the possible scope actually is. So expertise will be near free. We're almost there. We are at the cusp of seeing that with large language models and artificial intelligence in general. We have incredible knowledge packaged in a size that is just a few gigabytes, and it's pretty incredible to think about. Essentially, and I know not exactly, but essentially the entirety of human knowledge can be packaged in a file size that is just a few gigabytes large. And that means that any type of knowledge work could and likely will be replaced or at least highly complemented by large language models very soon. So he's talking about free AI doctors and free AI tutors for every child 24/7. I think those are just two examples, but there are many more. Software engineers, marketing, creatives, the list really goes on. And so what happens when expertise is nearly free? First of all, there's two sides of it. All of a sudden, everybody has access to cutting edge expertise in pretty much any field. The flip side to it is, what happens to all those experts? I still think that there's going to be a need for the cutting edge, the bleeding edge of knowledge and expertise, discovery. I don't quite think we're anywhere close to large language models being able to discover new knowledge, but I'm also very willing to be wrong about that. So if all of this expertise is suddenly free, I see a world in which individuals can solve problems almost on their own, complex problems that they would usually have to go to an expert to solve. And it's funny to think about this because just a few years ago, I think the general sentiment was blue collar workers would be the first to be replaced with artificial intelligence, with automation, with robotics. But it turns out thought workers, people like me who code or who are creative or a bunch of other examples, they were the first most likely to be replaced. And now it turns out being able to work with your hands is actually a really valuable skill and most likely will be a very valuable skill for the foreseeable future. As smart as AI is, and as good as robotics are getting, doing simple things is still really difficult for robots. And I'll give you an example. Elon Musk always talks about automating his factories. And one thing that he said was he went too far with automation because simple things like connecting two wires together, which for a human could not be easier, is extremely difficult for robots. It's just one of those things that humans are vastly better at. and take much less time to learn than a robot does. And I do think eventually robots will conquer this gap between human ability and what they're currently capable of, but for the time being, it seems like robots are still going to have a very difficult time with very simple tasks. So that is prediction number 1. All right, number 2, and this one's really exciting. Labor will be near free. We will have a billion bipedal and other robots freeing humans from the servitude of undesirable jobs. So this is one that I'm very excited about, but I'm not as hopeful in the near future. So he's talking about the next 10 to 25 years. Maybe at the tail end of the 25 years we'll see this, but a billion bipedal robots in the next 10 years? I don't think so. Now, what happens to the economy when we all of a sudden have a billion workers that are willing to work for free? Well, first of all, productivity is going to skyrocket, and that increased productivity might solve a lot of our really challenging economic problems. In the US specifically, we have enormous and growing debt to the point that the interest on the debt in the US is going to exceed every other type of expense that we have, which is mind-blowing to think about. This is a huge problem coming at us full speed that we just cannot seem to solve. So one of the ways to solve it is by increasing productivity dramatically, and this might be the way to do that. Now, of course, let's talk about the flip side. What happens when you have a billion workers that are willing to work for free 24 hours a day? All of a sudden, a lot of people are going to be out of jobs. Now, in the previous prediction, I said that robots doing even very simple tasks is still a far-fetched idea. The fact that humans can plug two wires together, yet a robot struggles with that task, is very telling as to what we can expect in the near and midterm. So with all of this additional productivity and all of the folks who were previously doing this work out of work, what are they going to be doing? This is actually a question that I'm not sure about. They need to find purpose, right? A job for most people is their sense of purpose, but also, what will they be doing? And I don't have good ideas for this yet. Let me know what you think in the comments. But this seems really cool. This is like straight out of the Jetsons, if you're familiar with that old cartoon. Next, something that I've thought quite a bit about. Number 3, computer use will grow expansively. There will be a billion plus programmers all programming in human language, dramatically increasing the scope of computers. Computers will adapt to humans, not humans to computers. So I have a lot of thoughts on this. First of all, there will be a billion plus programmers all programming in natural language, but that is the short and midterm. In the long run, there won't be programmers at all. There's just no need for it. It's just going to be humans speaking natural language to AI and AI computing directly. There's not going to be this intermediary layer of software necessary at that point. So we're going to see this huge influx of programmers over the next 5 to 8 years, and then all of a sudden, we're not going to need it anymore. And the last statement here, computers will adapt to humans, not humans to computers. I'm not exactly sure what he means by this, but I have a few thoughts. First, the way that programming works today is it looks a lot like natural language. And the reason that programming looks the way it does today is because humans are just really bad at programming. It has to look like that because we can't keep all of these concepts in our head in any other form. But here's the thing. As AI takes over more and more of our programming, of the actual creation of the lines of code that we're writing, it doesn't necessarily need to look like it does today. It could actually look extremely foreign to the point where humans can't even read it. They can invent a symbolic language that is a fraction of the size of our programming languages that we're familiar with today, but looks like alien language. And I actually think that's quite likely. If there is a highly efficient way for AI to program that looks foreign to humans, there's no reason that they should be coding in natural language. Now, there needs to be some translation layer so that humans can understand what's going on, but that is just another layer. That's not the actual core programming language. So this is something I truly believe in, but I don't think this is the end game. So having a billion programmers out there is something I truly believe is going to happen, but that's not the end result. The end result is going to be no programmers. Next, number 4, AI will play a large role in entertainment and design. Music and entertainment will be plentiful and personalized for you and your mood. Diversity of content and creativity will increase. The celebrity-fan relationship won't change. So a lot to unpack here. So first of all, agreed completely. We are essentially going to arrive at this state where content is created for an audience of one. It is created dynamically in the moment as well. There's not going to be pre-rendered content. You're just going to either describe what you want to see, or AI is going to know what you want to see. It'll package it up and give it to you in that moment, whether it's a video game, a TV show, a movie, whatever it is. You just describe what you want and you have it right there for an audience of one. It is custom to you. Now, the celebrity fan relationship not changing, I am not sure. It's hard to predict that. When everything is being created by AI, when all entertainment is being created by AI, then the personalities are going to be AI. And if everything's custom content, everybody has their own celebrity that they're a fan of. I am just not so sure. It's just not clear to me. It's not that I disagree or agree. It's just hard for me to envision what that part of the future looks like. Next, internet access will be mostly by agents. Most consumer access to the internet will be agents acting for consumers, doing tasks and fending off marketers and bots. Tens of billions of agents on the internet will be normal. Completely agree with this. Jan LeCun, just a couple months ago, did an interview with Lex Friedman, and he basically said the same thing. When asked how humans will protect themselves against misinformation, disinformation, and every other type of scam and con out there from artificial intelligence, Jan LeCun's answer was, well, you're going to have your own AI as your filter to all of the information coming in. And that is what Vinod is talking about here. Agents will go to the internet on my behalf. Agents will filter all of this information on my behalf. Now, that is a double-edged sword. It makes me a little nervous because how do I know my AI isn't giving me biased information? This is a very challenging problem that we're going to need to solve, and one that I think open source drastically helps with. If all of these models and algorithms are open source, everybody can see it, everybody can look at it and understand what is going on under the hood. Now, if we get to that future state where coding, the actual programming language, looks so foreign to us that it's difficult to read or impossible to read, I don't know how we then look under the hood. So these are conflicting ideas in my head that I'm still trying to resolve. But I truly believe that agents are going to be our kind of frontline defense and access to the internet. And the Rabbit device is a perfect example of the glimpse into the future. You tell the agent to go do something for you, they go do it and bring back the resolution, whether it was solved, whether they accomplished the task, whether it's a piece of information they need to give you. And so you're not actually accessing the internet directly. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to be completely blind to what's out there, but if you just think about how much information is going to be created on a daily basis by artificial intelligence, whether it's true, whether it's false, whether it's a scam, whether it's not a scam, there's going to be so much out there. It's going to be impossible for any single human to sift through. That's why AI needs to be that barrier between us and the internet, and really whatever they're presenting to us is going to be our internet. Now, I know that's a little controversial, so I definitely want to hear what you think about that in the comments. Please leave them. I'm going to read them. Next, number 6, from the practice to the science of medicine, we will be capable of providing precision care based on patientomics, as well as AI models for each individual, enabling simulation of each body for therapeutics, dosages, etc. So this is actually something I haven't thought a lot about, so I don't have a lot of comments on it, but it sounds very, very interesting. Again, following this notion of content for one, science for one, care for one, I think that's going to be the future, because the limiting factor today are the experts, the number of doctors. If you had an entire team of doctors for each single person in the entire world, then that can really accomplish this future state that he's describing here. So they're going to be doing research on your behalf based on your specific body, your DNA, everything about you, your health, and it's going to be customized to you and running 24 hours a day, constantly doing research, constantly thinking about ways to make you healthier. That's something I think is really cool. I just don't have a lot of thoughts about it yet because it's not something I've thought through. And here's number 7, another that I haven't thought through a ton because it's just not AI related, and that's what I've been thinking a lot about lately. So, number 7, we will have new food and fertilizers. We will have much better alternate protein production to replace traditional animal protein. So, whether that's synthetic proteins or that's plant-based proteins or even insects, which I know is very popular in other countries, not in the US, but I think it's starting to catch on. I know I've seen a few Shark Tank pitches for cricket bars and stuff like that, but it's a hard mental hurdle to get over for US citizens at least. And taste will far exceed that of traditional cows. So I don't know, possibly. I've never tasted synthetic meat that even tasted like meat, and I like the taste of synthetic meat, just to be clear. Impossible burgers, I like them, but they don't taste like meat, and they're not as good as real meat. I'll be clear about that. But they have their own taste, and they're interesting. They are full of salt currently, so it's not the best thing for me to eat, but eating meat causes a lot of environmental issues. So I'm definitely open to trying or at least supplementing my meat intake with other potential protein sources. Number 8, cars could be displaced in cities. We could replace majority of cars in cities with personal autonomous transit as on-demand affordable public transit, increasing street throughput dramatically. This is something I do believe in, and on August 8th of this year, Tesla is going to introduce their robo-taxi concept. So it is definitely going to happen as autonomous driving gets better and better, as we solve that last 10 to 20% of autonomous driving. We're going to find that we're able to utilize vehicles much more than they're currently being utilized today. I think the stat is on average, a vehicle sits unused 90 to 95% of the day, which is kind of insane to think about. All of those cars out there that are doing nothing. I would love it if I could simply get dropped off somewhere and my car goes and does something else, and then I pay a fraction of what the total cost of the car is. And look, I grew up in LA, so I'm very into the car culture. I love having a car, but I do see a very useful future starting with busy cities where the autonomous vehicle, the shared autonomous vehicle, is very popular. And we're already seeing some of that with Waymo in San Francisco, and I think they have a few other cities that they're operating in, but that could be a very exciting future and start to decongest our very crowded infrastructure. Next, number 9, flying will be faster. We will have Mach 5 planes that get us from New York City to London in 90 minutes on sustainable aviation fuel, making the world closer. This is something I probably know the least about. This sounds awesome, but we had the Concorde decades ago, but it was retired because the fuel cost was tremendous and it just wasn't worth it. And aviation innovation has stalled for decades. Planes actually go slower than they did decades ago because the fuel cost is so high. So if this is true, that's wonderful. I would love to be able to get places much more quickly. It would bring the world closer together. I absolutely hate flying, and it's a big reason I try to limit my travel. So if this would be true, I would be all for it. I just don't know. I'm not knowledgeable about this subject. Next, there will be clean, dispatchable electric power. By 2050, fusion boilers will retrofit and replace coal and natural gas boilers, reducing the need to build whole new fusion plants. Super hot geothermal is also a real alternative. So that might be true. I would be very happy with that. I think there's going to be this need for an abundance of electricity because of artificial intelligence. AI takes a lot of processing power to run, and the way that processing power runs is by electricity. And so what I actually think we're going to see is huge data centers, big supercomputers that have modular nuclear energy creation plants right next to them. So we're going to see these modular plants next to these server farms all over the country, all over the world. I'm not so sure about fusion boilers. Sounds cool. Again, not something I'm super knowledgeable about, but I know that there's this huge need for an abundance of electricity, and it's only growing rapidly today. Next, resources will be plentiful. We will discover more natural resources than we consume and prove resource doomers wrong on lithium, cobalt, copper. I don't know the science behind this prediction. It sounds great. I hope it happens, but might be the one that I'm most doubtful of, because why haven't we found it yet? And if we find it, we're probably using some new technique to get it, to extract it from the earth. And if we're using some new technique, there's generally side effects. So I don't know. This is another one that sounds cool. I'm not super knowledgeable about, but I would love to see it. And all the other metals that go into batteries are going to be very needed in the future and right now, whether we're talking about electric vehicles, whether we're talking about modular energy storage, all of these things will help us get to a more renewable energy future. Next and last, carbon will have solutions if we have time. Carbon emissions could be a smaller issue because entrepreneurs will develop and scale better technologies for cement, steel, agriculture, transportation, power production, DAC, etc. This sounds great. I believe in this because this is a clear technology will solve this kind of problem. I've heard of tech that can vacuum carbon out of the atmosphere. I know that there are new technologies for cement and steel and agriculture coming out all the time. I know transportation is transitioning to electric vehicles, which have its own problems, but hopefully we'll solve that as well. This is more of the, if you're a techno optimist, you're probably going to believe in this. And I do, and I am. Last, he says things that might slow down predictions. So these are his predictions, but of course, there are things that might cause delays in these predictions. Not that they won't happen, just that they might take longer. So one, incumbent resistance, regulatory capture, and so on. So obviously, if incumbents resist it and they prevent it through any means, it's going to take more time. Politicians capitalizing on fear for personal populist gain. This is very much aligned with incumbent resistance because they can work together to essentially delay or stop completely these technologies. Tech failures or delays, this is going to happen. We're going to see failures. So I don't know why he's listed this as something that will slow down progress. This should be baked into the original predictions. Financial market conditions may kill a good idea. Very true. Anti-tech sentiment, we're seeing more and more of that. I hope everybody is a techno-optimist, but I'm an optimist, so of course that's what I think. Luddites hijacking the would-be advocate. A few bad AI-related outcomes that get sensationalized. This one is interesting. If we see a few bad outcomes, all of a sudden politicians are going to try to regulate it to death, and we're already kind of seeing that in other countries, not the US quite yet, but yeah, that can definitely happen. Left field events, basically black swan events, yes, that could also happen. And then instigators, entrepreneurs may not show up to make it happen. I don't think this is going to be the case. I'm very, very bullish on the entrepreneurial culture that we not only have in the US, but throughout the world. I love it. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I encourage all of you to explore things that interest you. And if you get interested enough, see if you can actually create value from it. So that's it for today. If you liked this video, please consider giving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.